Thank you. So, hi everyone. My name is Lloyd De Jongh. I'm South African and I lived 11 years in the Middle East. I worked some of that time in national defense. I traveled extensively across the Middle East. I lived and worked with Muslims. I spent a lot of time in conflict areas designing um, security systems, the type that failed or were destroyed that allowed Hamas to enter Israel. So I designed systems that monitored borders, that provided early warning, detection, surveillance at long range, wide areas. So I have some familiarity with the issue, and of course, I studied Islam because I was curious about the mindset, the ideology, especially with ISIS Bataclan 2015, and I studied the Sharia. Now, few people really know very well the Sharia. Muslims are not allowed to speak about it. It is too embarrassing. It is too revealing of what the consensus is of the Islamic sources. Someone in your chat has been speaking about Muslims only follow the Quran. Well, then who interprets the Quran? Who says this is the final meaning of that? And that would be the highest ranked scholars in Islam, because Islam claims to be a political system. It also claims to have a full legal system, and that is not found in the Quran. The Quran doesn't even have the names of Muhammad's wives. Where do you find the names of Muhammad's wives? Those are absolutely, positively not found in the Quran, right? So maybe with the exception of Aisha, how to do the prayers, that's not in the Quran. You're not going to find it. So how can the Quran be authoritative if the Quran is missing significant major parts of Islam? So of course, there's the hadiths. I showed a little bit of that last time. The hadiths are called wahi, meaning they are revelation. So they are considered as important and sometimes more important because they provide an exegesis of the Quran that is missing in the Quran itself. And of course, if you study to be an imam in Islam, you have to study the Sharia. You go to university and you go to like Al-Azhar. And actually, so I'm on page 731. So let me go here. So there's a few things that I will do tonight. I'll focus mainly on jihad, on the concept of violence in Islam, and show you its basis, right? And then later on, we'll allow chance for questions. So this is, again, the reliance of the traveler. The reliance of the traveler is the most common, the most popular, the most used of the Islamic Sharia law manuals, right? And so here we've got the certification of Al-Azhar, you'll see, and this is the subject. These are the subjects that are discussed within this. The validity of following qualified scholarship. Muslims are obligated by law, by Allah's word, to follow Islamic scholars. This thing discusses marriage. Now, for instance, where are the marriage laws in the Quran? If your friend who was waxing lyrical about, well, Muslims only follow the Quran. Well, okay, so you want to have a wedding. Please show me in the Quran which page we're going to find how to conduct a wedding, all the wedding laws. I'd love to see it. And you and I both know it doesn't exist there. You're not going to find it. Someone had to go through all of the Islamic sources, including the Kitab al-Sitta, the 6 books of hadith, and there are multiple volumes of these things besides just those 6. Notice here, from page 506 to page 554, you have marriage to divorce. So you have 48 pages here dedicated to just marriage, rules of marriage. Those rules are not in the Quran. So either the Muslim scholars, the highest ranked scholars on earth to have ever lived in Islam, either they're lying, which is going to be a bold claim for the woman to make, or maybe there's things she doesn't know about Islam and she really needs to sit down and be quiet. Divorce, you can see from page 554 to 578, justice, enormities, and this, commanding the right and forbidding the wrong. This is the primary doctrine of Islam. This is fundamental to Islam. So this is, within Christian doctrine, you've got the Great Commission, which is to go forth and convert the world in the name of, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, and so on. In Islam, Muslims have to follow this ruling here, commanding the right and forbidding the wrong. If they don't, God will turn his back on all Muslims and they will all go to hell. At least some Muslims. Okay, so there's a table of contents. So let's quickly go to the Al-Azhar. All right. So the documents. Okay, so these are documents of warranty. The warrant of Sheikh Abdul Waqil Durubi. Okay, so he's the Imam of the Mosque of Darwish Pasha, Damascus, Syria. Okay, interesting. Sufi mosque. Interesting if Sufis are not Muslims. Interesting that this is the very first of the Islamic law manuals, the Muslim law, the Sharia manuals, to be translated into English. It had the highest priority because it was the most common, and this is one of the most famous and most authoritative of these Islamic law manuals. Here they're speaking of the translator. He understands the texts. Let me just get my mouse pointer up. He understands the texts of this volume and is qualified to expound it and translate it to his native English. So in other words, he has read through the classical laws of Islam, Imam of the Mosque of Darwish Pasha, great. That's his seal. Here we've got another one, the Mufti of the Jordanian Armed Forces, who tells us, I found the above-mentioned brother knowledgeable in what it contains and qualified to expound it and translate it into English, and I observed his accuracy and integrity in quoting the text. Excellent stuff. Then we also go to this guy. This is the International Institute of Islamic Thought. This is a Muslim Brotherhood front organization. A textbook for teaching Islamic jurisprudence to English speakers, and a legal reference for use by scholars. This translation is superior to anything produced by Orientalists in the way of translations of major Islamic works. It has a sound understanding of Islamic law, and it's this guy, president of the International Institute of Islamic Thought, Islamic Fiqh Academy at Jeddah, and president of the Fiqh Council, the Legal Council of North America. So I'm guessing that these people have more authority than whoever that woman was in the chat earlier today. Al-Azhar is where Barack Obama went, of course, when he wanted to. I'm just providing the bona fides of this document to see why it is authoritative. And Al-Azhar is the most prominent, the most famous, and the oldest and most prestigious Islamic law seminary and university in the world in Egypt. And this is where Barack Obama went to go and bow to the Muslim Brotherhood. So, certification of Al-Azhar. Okay, and it says here, we certify that the above-mentioned translation corresponds to the Arabic original and conforms to the practice and faith of the Orthodox Sunni community, the Al-Sunnah wa Al-Jama'ah. There is no objection to printing and circulating it. Fantastic. So let's go back to where we were earlier. Okay, I think it was 731. So this is the primary commanding the right and forbidding the wrong. The obligation to command the right, it's a communal obligation. All Muslims have to do it, and the levels of obligation. So let's have a look. This is Islam's holy law, the Muslim holy law, right? And they speak here of, first of all, a Muslim must explain that something is wrong. So he has to have knowledge of the Sharia to explain to non-Muslims what they're doing wrong, what defies Islamic law. Remember, Sharia law applies to you. Are you alive? Excellent. Sharia law applies to you. Are you a Muslim? Doesn't matter. So first, forbid the act verbally. Then censure with harsh words. In other words, use vile language. Call their mother a whore. Swear at them, right? Righting the wrong by hand. Now, righting the wrong by hand. Who knows what that could mean? Anyone have an idea what righting the wrong by hand could mean? Who knows? It's a mystery. Then intimidation, assault, and force of arms. Now, let me see. Do you guys have within the Jewish holy scriptures, right? Within the Jewish law, do you have these steps which require Muslims to do this kind of thing? Wolfman, do you have force of arms, assault, and intimidation as part of the Jewish doctrine? Well, these are part. Yeah. This is part of the perfect law of Allah to be followed by all Muslims. Assault and force of arms. Let's have a little look at that. Okay? Commanding the right and forbidding the wrong is the most important fundamental of the Islamic religion and is the mission that Allah sent the prophets to fulfill. That includes David, Moses, Abraham, all those Muslim prophets. If it were folded up and put away, religion itself would vanish. Islam would vanish if they didn't do this. So let there be a group of you called to good and command the right and forbid the wrong, for those are the successful. So there's that small minority of Muslims who must always do this, okay? They must always do this. So basically, let me see. Whoever of you sees something wrong, let him change it with his hand. If unable to, let him change it with his tongue. If he cannot change it with his heart, with his tongue, change it with your heart. And that is the weakest degree of faith. So in other words, use your hands to do something physical, right? We'll have a quick look through this. So it says here that if you don't do this, Allah will put the worst of you in charge of the best of you, and the best will supplicate to Allah and be left unanswered. Allah will turn his back on the Muslims, all right? So let's continue. Now, it says here, some scholars have said, okay, that the person delivering the censure, and this includes violence, as we saw, it escalates to violence, must have permission to do so from the caliph. This is untrue. For the Quranic verses and hadiths all indicate that whoever sees something wrong and does nothing has sinned. So stipulating that there must be permission from the caliph is mere arbitrary opinion. So yeah, that's a common lie that Muslims will tell. Okay, so let me see. Let me go to something. So this will be commanding the right, forbidding the wrong, will be obligatory until the day of judgment. So now, what may be censured, I want to mention here. Okay, it is so if something wrong is manifest to another outside of a Muslim's house, such as the sound of music, oh my gosh, someone who hears them may enter and break the instruments. This is Islamic law. Music's illegal. So therefore, if someone is playing music and you can hear it in their house, you have the right to enter that person's house that is trespassing, and you may smash their music instruments. If you smell the odor of wine, the sound or opinion, it is permissible to enter the house and condemn it. All right, fantastic. Okay, one should not eavesdrop at another's house to hear the sounds of musical instruments, okay? But if you do hear it, and if two upright witnesses come and inform you, one may enter his house and take him to task. And we'll have to see what kind of things this says, okay? But let's go to the portion with violence. So we already know that you can do things. So let's talk about intimidation. The 6th degree is threatening and intimidation. Stop this or I will. And when possible, this should precede actually hitting the person. So let me see. Threaten them and then hit them. These are the laws of Allah. Threaten people, then hit them if they do things that violate the Sharia. And the rule for this level is not to make a threat that you cannot carry out. Then proceed to assault. The 7th degree is to directly hit or kick the person, or similar measures that do not involve weapons. This is permissible for private individuals. Oh, thanks. Praise be to Allah. Allah works in mysterious ways. The 8th degree is when one is unable to censure the act by oneself and requires the armed assistance of others. Yeah, there is no need for the caliph's permission. My oh my. So yeah, any thoughts so far on this, Wolfman? The religion of a lot of yellow, warm peace. Definitely peace. Okay, so let's move to something else. All right, I will come back to all of that. This is ISIS, right? This is the Rumia issue 9. If you have this on Google Drive, Google will delete it and send you an email threatening you, the ruling on the belligerent Christians. So if you're not a Christian, you're a Jew, it doesn't really matter all that much. Let's have a look at a few of these rulings and see if we're going to see this. So kill the mushrikeen wherever you find them. Are you not a Muslim? Well, you're one of these people. The default with regards to the blood of mushrikeen is that it is permissible to shed. Fantastic, due to the statement of Allah and when the sacred months have passed. Quran 9.5 and 9.32 play a big role here. Then kill the mushrikeen wherever you find them and capture them and besiege them and sit in wait for them at every place of ambush. As the Prophet said, say, I was commanded to fight the people until they say, blah, 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 blah. And the mushrikeen cannot render their blood inviolable except through a dhimma contract or a covenant of security and safety. Now, everyone said ISIS were extremists. ISIS were not following Islam. Well, ISIS were following Islam extremely accurately. All right, so what we need to do is, let me go to... so now I want to go to a different section. We want to talk about jihad. Okay, so let me just run up to that section. One, go up a little further, 9. Okay, jihad. So here we've got, okay, I'll start with apostasy, just so you can see this again as further corroboration. Okay, apostasy from Islam. If Muslims love to deny that apostasy involves the death penalty. It does involve the death penalty. It is murder. Anyone can kill you. We've already discussed some of that in the previous episode. We discussed what happens if people don't believe in Islam. Whoever voluntarily leaves Islam is killed. That's what it says in this Islamic law manual. There's no indemnity for killing him. In other words, there's no punishment on you for killing someone who has left Islam. And then they speak of jihad and the scriptural basis for jihad from the Quran, which we'll see that ISIS just said something similar. We'll see that. And the obligatory character of jihad. Okay, so 08.0. So let me see. And the objectives of jihad and regarding Jews and Christians. My oh my. So you might not be interested in jihad. Yes? Father. No, Judaism, the line is matrilineal, whereas in Islam it's patrilineal, technically, but also to say a Muslim, okay, so a Muslim will do something bad and the Muslim will say that's not a real Muslim, it wasn't a Muslim. No. To be Muslim, I think there are three criteria. One, you believe you have said the Shahada, okay? La ilaha illallah, blah, 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 right? You've said the Shahada, you believe in Allah and Muhammad as his prophet, and you believe in the last day. The last day is when Muhammad comes back. That day will happen. The return of Muhammad, which is the end times, will occur when the Muslims murder all the Jews in the world. So once the Muslims kill all Jews, then the end times will come. So those are the three things that make you a Muslim. So no matter what a Muslim does, there is no crime that a Muslim commits that will not make him a Muslim, as long as he believes in Allah, believes in Muhammad, right? Allah and Muhammad as the messenger of Allah, believes in the last day, and has said the Shahada. Does that answer that? Okay, so now I want to go to 08.1. Oh, by the way, the following are not subject to retaliation, because you know that honor killing is a common thing in Islam. The following are not subject to retaliation. In other words, there's no kind of legal punishment a Muslim for killing a non-Muslim. There is no punishment for that. Or killing an apostate from Islam. Okay, killing an apostate from Islam is without consequences. Interesting. Killing an apostate from Islam has no consequences. Or there is no penalty, no legal penalty, no punishment for a father or mother or their fathers or mothers for killing their offspring or offspring's offspring. A father, a mother, or grandparents can kill their children or their grandchildren if they believe that this is honorable in Islam. There is no punishment. Do you understand the brutality and the depravity that is Islam? So I'm going to go to section 08. Okay. Let me skip ahead here. Let's see where we are. Oh, the indemnity for death or injury of a woman is 1/2 the indemnity paid for a man. The indemnity paid for a Jew or Christian is 1/3 of the indemnity paid for a Muslim. The indemnity paid for a Jew or Christian, so you are worth 1/3 that of a Muslim. Now, of course, Muslims and others love to say that. Now, I come from South Africa, which was an apartheid state. And to be honest, at this point in my life, I miss apartheid because the black government is a disaster. The black government is an incompetent, corrupt cabal. And yeah, things were actually better under apartheid. But that said, people love to call Israel an apartheid state. No, this is Islam. In Israel, everyone has the right to vote. Everyone has equal authority and equal rights under the law. In Islam, if they get their caliphate, you are going to have very, very little by way of laws. And the indemnity paid for a Zoroastrian is 1/15 that of a Muslim. So there you know your value. Okay, so there you know your value. That's fantastic. Let's continue here. Let's go to this section here. And here they talk about what is kufr, but that's not that critical. Okay, so this section's in black. This is not relevant. The reason I've taken this section out is because this is not in the original Arabic text. The author added this section. So the author added. They do this within the Sharia because they want to try and soften the message. There are sections that were entirely removed from this manual. You can find them in others. So for instance, this is the Shari definition of jihad. This is not some fool's private definition. This is the legal, and you'll see it's consistent across all the Sharia law manuals. If you go to my channel, I've got detailed, lengthy videos going through multiple Sharia manuals showing the consistency of the consensus, the ijma, across all of the schools of fiqh. Jihad means to war against non-Muslims. Notice it doesn't say to have more salads, walk little old ladies across the street. It says jihad means to war against non-Muslims and is etymologically derived from the word mujahada, signifying warfare to establish the religion of Islam. That is the legal definition. There is no other legal definition. Now, there are 14 or 13 or 14, depending which source you check, variants of jihad. There are many, many kinds of jihad, but this is the only legal definition within Islamic law. The others are variations. For those with azima rukhsa on that spectrum of relaxation and strictness, this is the final definition. This is the only legal definition. The scriptural basis for jihad prior to scholarly consensus, which is the ijma defined in B7, is such. Quranic verses as fighting is prescribed for you, Quran 2:216. Slay them wherever you find them, Quran 4:89, and fight the idolaters utterly, Quran 9:36. I have been commanded to fight the people until they testify that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. If they say it, they have saved their blood and their possessions from me. ISIS was just writing that in Rumiyah, so maybe ISIS are not so extreme. Maybe ISIS are just doing this accurately. The obligatory character of jihad. Jihad is a communal obligation. There are two kinds of obligation in Islam. Fard al-Kifaya, right? And Fard al-Ain. Fard al-Ain is an individual obligation. So in other words, every Muslim is required to pray, right? That's Fard al-Ain. However, there's also the Fard al-Kifaya, which is a communal obligation. So in other words, that obligation of prayer, daily prayer, that communal obligation falls upon the highest level of scholars. And those scholars, their prayer means much, much more. Their prayers are worth thousands of times that of the individual. So those prayers are what actually saves the ummah, right? So the individual has to pray, but the major prayers. So jihad is a communal obligation. A small minority of Muslims must always be practicing jihad, at least twice a year, once a year at minimum. If they don't, Allah will start to condemn the Muslims. Now it says here, because apparently the Prophet said, he who provides the equipment for a soldier in jihad has himself performed jihad. That's money, weapons, assistance, intelligence. And those of the unbelievers who are unhurt but sit behind are not equal to those who fight in Allah's path with property and lives. Now what is interesting is that you'll find that the Sharia routinely quotes the hadiths. Now this woman who was speaking earlier, she was going on only the Quran. Well, a Quran-only Muslim is known as an apostate from Islam. So the Sharia constantly quotes the hadiths, right? So you'll see that all the time. Now, if none of those concerned perform jihad, and jihad does not happen at all, then everyone who is aware that it is obligatory is guilty of sin, right? And jihad was a communal obligation. And there are two possible states in respects to non-Muslims. The first is that when they are in their own countries, in which case jihad is a communal obligation. And this is what the author, the translator, whatever he's speaking of when he says jihad is a communal obligation, meaning upon the Muslims each year. In other words, they've got to go into your country, right? So the second state is when non-Muslims invade a Muslim country or near to one, in which case jihad is personally obligatory. Every Muslim, now jihad becomes fard al-ain upon the inhabitants of that country, who must repel the non-Muslims with whatever they can. Jihad is personally obligatory for everyone able to perform it, male or female. Fascinating. Okay? Who is obliged to fight? Those called upon to perform jihad when it is a communal obligation are every able-bodied man who has reached puberty and is sane. Jihadis are not insane. They have to qualify as sane. Interesting. Right? It is offensive to conduct a military expedition against hostile non-Muslims without the caliph's permission. Okay, so don't do it unless there's a caliph, and Muslims will say, but there's no caliph, so therefore you can't. But it goes on to say, though, if there is no caliph, no permission is required, so go do it anyway. This is really common in the Sharia. If you read through it enough, you're going to find that they contradict themselves in the sentence right after constantly. It's a pretty common thing. So yeah, so don't do jihad if there's no caliph, but if there's no caliph, do it anyway. Don't worry about the caliph. And the objectives of jihad. The caliph makes war upon Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians. And you don't forget, if there's no caliph, just do it anyway. provided he has first invited them to enter Islam. And we'll see that, sure, they'll say this and then say, well, you know what? But if you don't wait for permission, if you don't invite them and just attack them and kill them anyway, that's okay, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Just go on with your life, right? The war continues until they become Muslim or else pay the non-Muslim poll tax, the jizya, in accordance with the word of Allah, who said, fight those who do not believe in Allah until they pay the poll tax out of hand and are humbled. He means humiliated you. We can go into different sources that translate this, shall we say, more accurately. Nothing but Islam will be accepted. Yes? Jizya is designed to humiliate and to cripple them economically. It's designed to humiliate. It's designed to force them, because you will not be able to repair your places of worship. You cannot hold public services. You cannot worship freely. In theory, they say, yes, you can, but it is really designed to also, for instance, your children, you cannot allow, if your children are not Muslims, they cannot inherit your property. So what happens is your places of worship crumble into dust. Your properties eventually come to Muslims, and it's just, and there's no minimum for the jizya. There's no minimum requirement for what, I have a couple of very detailed videos on that on my channel, where I go through the laws. I go through in detail from multiple sources from the Muslims. So you see, Jesus will, yeah. That's not true. Now, if you go through the details on my channel, you're going to see that you are heavily discriminated against. I mean, it is just cruel punishment. I'll go through some of that. So Jesus is a Muslim. Jesus will rule with the Sharia, okay? And the Caliph fights all peoples until they become Muslim, okay? So that should give you an idea of what exactly jihad is, okay? Now notice, when a child or a woman is taken captive, they become slaves by the fact of capture. Okay? And the woman's previous marriage is immediately annulled. So this is Islam. When an adult male is taken captive, the Caliph considers the interests of Islam and the Muslims, and he decides between the prisoner's death, slavery, release without paying anything, or ransoming him in exchange for money or a Muslim captive. If the prisoner becomes a Muslim, then he may not be killed, and one of the other three alternatives is chosen. It is permissible in jihad to cut down the enemy's trees and destroy their dwellings. Muslims love to say you can't cut down the trees. The Sharia says otherwise. And in truces, in sacred law, truce means a peace treaty with those hostile to Islam involving a cessation of fighting for a specific period. Are you not a Muslim? Then you are hostile to Islam. It's that simple. So truces are permissible, not obligatory. It is a matter of the gravest consequence to have a truce because it entails the non-performance of jihad. So in other words, Muslims should think hard about forming a peace, because this means they are not doing jihad and they're required to do jihad, or Allah will turn his back on all the Muslims and they will go to hell. So any thoughts so far on what I've presented here? That yep. They must. It's obligatory. Yes. Yeah. You see, there must be an interest served in making a truce other than preservation of the status quo, you see. Truce must give them some kind of strategic advantage. It's that simple. Because it says in the Quran, do not be faint-hearted and call for peace when you are the uppermost. If you have strength, if you have the strength, then make war. It's that simple. So they would do it just to reorganize? Yes. Yeah, if the Muslims are weak, a truce may be made for 10 years if necessary. It is not permissible to stipulate longer than that, except by means of new truces, each of which does not exceed 10 years. But of course, they can break that truce at any time. Okay, that's called hiyal. They can break an agreement, an oath, a truce at any time. No legal agreement, nothing in Islam is sacrosanct. I have a talk on hiyal, H-I-Y-A-L. You have to look at that. It's Islamic deceit, Islamic deception, legal trickery, as they call it. you have to understand there's no promise, no oath, no truce, no agreement can be trusted. So, okay, so any thoughts on what I've presented? That is jihad from this, and I can go to some other sources as well. Any comments or questions? Look, the fact is these laws are on the books. It doesn't mean that every Muslim leader is going to implement them fully, right? There might be some who, for whatever reason, they decide they don't want to do this, and they don't, or they do them half-heartedly, or they do them to a limited degree. This is also legal and allowed in Islam. This between strictness and relaxation, this azma and rukhsa, that this is perfectly normal. But that said, the next guy could have a son, or another leader comes along and says, you know what, we're going to crank it up. We're going to follow the book to the letter, and then things change, right? And also, in many cases, they needed the education that was present in a lot of the Jews for administrative purposes. They couldn't do, because the Jews often were doing administration within these civilizations. They could read, they could write, they were educated. But also, once they didn't need them, they would expel them because they didn't need them anymore. They've taken all their possessions, now they're just a burden. They didn't want to convert necessarily all of them to Islam because they needed people to be the menial, to provide money, the goose that lays the golden egg, and so on. So yeah, but the thing is that ISIS instituted this fully. Hamas is a theocracy. Iran's a theocracy. They live under these laws. They apply these laws. And they want to one day implement these fully, strictly. In which case, things are going to be very, very bad. So it might be going nice today. That doesn't mean it's going to go nice tomorrow. The Muslims will murder every single Jew on the face of the planet for the love of Allah, because this is going to bring Muhammad back. And who wouldn't want that? Now, a Muslim man can marry a Christian woman, but not the other way around. That's specified in the marriage laws. If you read the marriage laws, I've got talks on that on my channel as well. If you go through the reliance of the traveler that we saw earlier, if I go here, hold on. Here, if you go to the section on marriage, this will talk about, that's on page 5 or 6 here. This will talk about how a Muslim man can marry a Christian woman or a Jewish woman, but not the other way around. That's not allowed. So you are infidels, but you are people of the book. The thing is, look, Islam doesn't make sense. It contradicts itself. When you read the laws, they contradict themselves, but it's not rational. It doesn't make sense. So they don't seem to care very much because they're not thinking straight. Sorry, do you have more? More to that question? So, okay, now for instance, Muslims like to lie and say there's no such thing as amputation, and those are just extremists. So now remember, this is the Hidayah. Okay, on page 10 here. This is the Hidayah. The Hidayah, a commentary on Islamic laws, right? So someone will write a fiqh manual, a Sharia manual, right? And usually these are very thin. They're very small. And those manuals just contain some basic outlines, basic exegesis from the Quran. Then a commentary will be created. The Hidayah is 4 volumes, and it's 3 volumes or whatever. It's 2,652 pages or something like that, if I recall. So in other words, the Quran is like a small, tiny book. It was exegeted by one of the mujtahids mutlaq, like Shafi, into a book that's maybe 100, 150 pages that says, okay, this is the meaning of all of these verses, let's exegete those, and this is the meanings that we have, right? And then someone takes that 150-page book, 100-page book, and he turns it into a commentary, which is a full legal commentary with application to all, like the Talmud, it goes and applies this law to every situation and provides general and specific rulings. Then you have thousands of pages, and we saw last week, I discussed the Pakistani courts that use the Hidayah. Okay, so the Pakistani courts, for instance, I showed the example paper by 2 PhD scholars in Pakistan. This is the Hidayah. This is what they still use in Pakistani courts today, because this is considered probably the most important. This is the Hanafi manual, but this doesn't mean that it's not applied or used by other schools. Don't let people lie to you and tell you, yeah, but that's a Shafi book. The Hanafis don't. Bullshit. Okay? Bullshit. These books are used across because this contains the ijma, right? And depending how strict they want to go, they'll decide which one. But the Hanafi is the largest school of fiqh, or Muslim law, right? It's the largest of these madhabs, as they call them as well, schools of persuasion. So this one is prime. That's why the Pakistani courts still use this today for counsel on how to apply Islamic rulings. Okay, so let me go back to where I was. So amputation, as you can see, thefts which occasion amputation of the manner of cutting off the limb of a thief. So you can see here from page 107 to page 126. So there's 19 pages that explain how to cut off the hand of a thief, in case you were interested in knowing how. Now, it's weird that there's like 1 or 2 verses in the Quran that talk about cutting off the hands of a thief, but here there's 19 pages. So maybe this is more important in a way, because it explains exactly when, why, how, who, right? So if you can find all of this information in the Quran, well, great. Good luck to you, because it's not there, but it's right here, right? And the manner of waging war, plunder, and the division thereof. Now, pirates do plunder, but apparently this is a holy act for Allah. Plunder. And the division of plunder, and so on and so on. Let's have a look. The conquests of infidels. My oh my, if Islam's a religion of peace, what do they mean he had the conquests of infidels? And of jizya, the capitation tax and the laws concerning apostates. So, fascinating stuff. So, let me just go up here again. I'm going to go to on the manner of waging war, so I need to go find that. Al-Siyir. Siyir is a word meaning war, okay? They now have the Sirah, right, which is supposedly the Prophet's biographies, the Gospels of Muhammad. But the original root of the word Sirah is Sir, which is Sir in the language of the law, more especially, applies to the institutes of the Prophet in his wars. So the Sirah are really a discussion of the wars of Muhammad. Muhammad is the perfect example, the perfect man. And if Muhammad did it, no Muslim can say anything against it. It is the perfect act, and therefore they must repeat exactly what Muhammad did. Did Muhammad kill people and rape little girls? Go for it. It's good to go. The manner of waging war, of plunder, and the conquests of infidels, as you can see there. Right, let's have a look through the Hidayah, the most voluminous, possibly, and certainly, arguably, the most important, the most relevant of the Islamic law manuals, the largest and most detailed. Now, if you become an imam, you go to university, you study to be an imam, a sheikh, a qadi, you will study basic manuals, like you'll start off with the Muqtasa al-Quduri, for instance, which is a basic introductory Sharia manual, and you'll end after 5 years, 7 years, whatever, you will study the Hidayah, because it is the most detailed. Now, let's see what it says here. War must be carried on against the infidels at all times by some party of the Muslims. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. The sacred injunction, the sacred ruling or law, command, instruction concerning war is sufficiently observed when it is carried on by any one party of the tribe of Muslims, and it is then no longer of any force with respect to the rest. That small minority of jihadis, you see. So the rest don't have to do it as long as that small minority are following jihad as fard al-kifaya, right? Jihad as a communal obligation, right? It was laid by Allah in the Quran. Slay the infidels. It's a divine ordinance. Allah said it. Allah be praised. He works in mysterious ways. Slay the infidels. Are you not a Muslim? Then you're an infidel. And also by a saying of the Prophet, war is permanently established until the day of judgment, meaning the ordinances or the law respecting war, the commands from Allah. It is enjoined for the purpose of advancing Islam, the true faith. And they speak here of jihad fard, or ordained war. Okay, war to be waged against infidels, known as the holy war. Okay, that's pretty unambiguous. Let's continue. Okay. When this end is answered by any single tribe or party of the Muslims making war, the obligation is no longer binding upon the rest. If, however, no Muslim were to make war, the whole of the Muslims would incur the criminality of neglecting it. So, it is a criminal act for Muslims not to wage war on infidels, not to wage war on you. Then all of Islam goes to hell. Understand, it is a crime in Islam not to murder people. So, yeah, this violates the Islamic law. Do you want to, the word for this is messed up. Do you understand the depravity, the violence? The destruction of the sword is incurred by infidels, although they not be the first aggressors, as appears from various passages in the sacred writings, which are received to this effect. And it says here on the right-hand side, infidels may be attacked without provocation. Infidels may be attacked without provocation. Why were these books translated into English? Well, because these were the most critical of the Islamic law resources. especially in countries where the British and others were dealing with Muslim issues. They needed to, in terms of their courts, they needed to get these things into English so they could manage according to the Sharia. So these books were prioritized by the governments. Get these books in English because these are the ones the Muslims actually use. And they speak here of qital, meaning war in its operation, such as fighting, slaying. So yeah, killing people dead. This is the Hidayah, I'll show you here. This is when I spoke of when I showed the PhD paper about the four Islamic law manuals that are still used today in Pakistani courts. This was the first one on the list. No, this is, look, there are four schools of fiqh. There are four schools of fiqh in Islam, in Sunni Islam. This is the major manual. This is the crown jewel in the Hanafi school, right? The reliance that we saw is the Shafi'i school. However, it's not like these are four separate religions. It's like, for instance, you might have the King James version works for the Church of England, and then the Catholics have the Douay Rheims, and then of course you've got maybe the Lutherans like the NIV. It's just slightly different variations of the Bible. It's not like they're four different religions. They just have variations. They all say the same thing. The one might say Christ is the Lamb, and you go, what, he's a lamb? And the one says Christ is the Redeemer. That's like two different gods. What do you mean? It's like, no, it's just different. It means the same stuff. It's just slightly different phrasings and so on. Like, for instance, if I... 80, it's about 80% the same. It's not like the Shia or Buddhists. Have you ever mistaken a Shia for a Buddhist? What's the chances? Do they look like Muslims or do they not look like Muslims? Do they talk about jihad and killing or don't they? You're not going to accident... Yeah, it's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same across the board. If anything, the Shia are probably more strict and it's probably worse. So, of the manner of waging war. Now, this is not because we went to war against them. And think about it. In the 690s, the Muslims had invaded France. The 690s, if not earlier, right? The Muslims had invaded France. They were already in Spain. They'd invaded Spain. They invaded France. They were kicked out of France in 732. Kicked out of France. Forced out of France in the 700s. Now, please let me know if the French had invaded Saudi Arabia at any time in the 500s, the 600s, the 700s, that they deserved this. And now it's like, well, the Westerners attacked Saudi Arabia in the 1950s and they deserve to... Bullshit. Utter bullshit. The Muslims have been invading Europe. This is just a brief summary. This is not the full document. Hopefully I have the document. Hopefully I have the information here. Okay, so let's have a quick look at this, right? The First Crusade began during the Middle Ages in the year 1095 as a cry for help against invading Islamic armies, right? It started 460 years after the first Christian city was overrun by Muslim armies, right? So 1095. So let's go calculator, right? Let's take 1095. Let's minus 460. So the Muslim armies, within 3 years of Muhammad's death, they'd taken Saudi Arabia, right, and much of Arabia. So in 635, they'd already invaded the first Christian city. The Crusades were 457 years after Jerusalem was conquered by the Muslims in 637. This is 453 years after Egypt was taken from Christendom by Muslim armies. 443 years after Muslim armies invaded and plundered Italy. Did you know that they invaded Italy? Right? In the 600s. 427 years after Muslim armies laid siege to Constantinople. 380 years after Spain was conquered. 363 years after France was first invaded by Muslims. Minus 363 years from that date. And understand, in the 690s, they were already in Spain, trying to take over Spain. 249 years after Rome was attacked by Muslim armies twice. Okay, this was after 4 centuries of church burnings, killings, enslavement, and forced conversions. By the time the Crusades began, 75% of the Christian world had been conquered and its people forced to convert or be enslaved under Islam. So these wars, right, the Charles Martel kicked the Muslims out of France in 732. At no point in time can you say here that the French had invaded Arabia and deserved it. That would be an utter lie. Okay, let's have a look at the timeline of jihad. 630, Muhammad conquers Mecca with 30,000 men. 632. Now, they have gone into Sweden, Iceland, Poland. What the heck were they doing in Ireland, Iceland, right? They conquered Cyprus, Tripoli, North Africa, Iran, Afghanistan, India. 673 to 678, Constantinople, right? Dome of the Rock is completed in Jerusalem, right? The lower Indus Valley in India in 713, they'd conquered that, all right? So you go through these dates. Muslim Crusaders capture Palermo, Italy, right? 831. The Muslim Crusaders conquer Sicily, Corsica, Italy, France. So can raid in 901. Do you understand how much warfare these Muslims have brought? And this is just, right, do you understand what's been going on here? This is insanity, right?
I remember that in one of your talks you mentioned that there are like two books which are summarizing the complete wars.
Yeah.
That 99% of the wars were wars by, governments, kingdoms, and stuff like that, and 7% was religious war.
Yeah, so
And
yes.
4% was by Muslim, and all the other religions combined was less than 3.
Yes, something like that. Yeah, so okay. Eight historians, eight historians who specialize in warfare wrote something called the Encyclopedia of Wars, and it starts 8,000 BC and works its way to the present day. So it's 10,000 years of human warfare. Now some of the wars, for instance, like you have like the Peloponnesian War, I think, which lasted for 250 years, right, and consists of hundreds of battles. They made this one war. So in other words, they could have made this into a dozen, 20, 30, 40, 50 wars, which would have increased the number of wars and would have increased the number of, changed the statistics, right, to make it even worse. But that said, so they made some wars that lasted for a long time. Even if they had dozens and hundreds of battles, they made them one war, right? And 93% approximately of those wars were wars for government, secular wars, right, governments. However, only about 6.8 or 7.2% of all wars in history are religious, have what they called a religious component, right? Only about 7% of all wars statistically known have a religious component, of which more than half are purely Islam. More than half. All the other religions combined, every other religion combined, makes up like 3%, and Islam on its own makes up like 4%. So yeah, let's have a look at, this is the Jihad timeline. So this is why the Vatican has this wall, because the Vatican wall is like this because of Muslim invasions, right? So let's have a look here. For instance, this is not a complete list, but Albania was invaded by the Muslims, late 14th century. Armenia, 640. Austria, Vienna, 1529, 1683. Belarus was invaded. Bosnia-Herzegovina. Bulgaria, 1396 to 1878. Crete, 650s to 960s. Battle of Tours, France. France was invaded in the 690s already. Hungary, Iceland. And they took people. They always took women for their harems as slaves. They always took men and women and boys and girls, right? Baltimore, Ireland, 1631. Israel, 637, 750, 970 to 983, 1024 to 1077. Italy was invaded. Lithuania, Macedonia, Malta, Poland. Poland was invaded in 1669, 1671, 1672 to 1676. Portugal, Romania, Russia, Sardinia, Serbia, Sicily, Spain, Ukraine. Did the Ukraine ever invade the Middle East? Like, no. So what are the Muslims doing there? Do you understand? This is what you're dealing with. This is the insanity, the Muslim insanity that you are dealing with. So, any comments or questions before I go on? Sure.
What's the reason? What's the basic reason?
So this doesn't mean that the Egyptian government doesn't follow Islam and doesn't want to kill you, certainly, but the Muslim Brotherhood is the world's largest terrorist organization. It's a secret society. It's the world's largest secret society. It has a couple of million members probably and 100 million adherents, followers. They are heavily funded. They've been involved in wet work since their inception in 1928. It was founded by a Sufi and a Freemason, Hassan al-Banna. Al-Banna is not his real name. Al-Banna apparently is a play on the word builder for mason, builder. Hassan al-Banna, Arabic for builder. So he predicted that they would bring the West down in 100 years. That's their plan. In 2028, they would destroy the West. They would destroy America. They would destroy Israel. They would bring down Western civilization. And so they've got 5 years to go, 4 years and something to go to meet that goal. And their plan was to infiltrate, to use their money to infiltrate into the West, and to put themselves in positions of government, power, military authority, media, and so on. But they want this final confrontation, they want this final war. So the Egyptian government, they have been a threat to the Egyptian government. They've assassinated various Egyptian leaders. They, for instance, when I was in the Middle East, in Dubai, they expelled like 100 people, Egyptians, because they were Muslim Brotherhood. So the Muslim Brotherhood are a political threat. They are a terrorist threat. They are a serious problem. They have a lot of money, a lot of followers, and they are willing to kill to get their political aims done. They are heavily influential in Jordan, for instance. So yeah, they are pushing hard. Yeah.
But I would like to add on this question. If the government are relatively secular and they are in opposition to the brotherhood, in you have city, in Jordan you have the kingdom, why is it that
Because they don't. It depends. I mean, look, individual Muslims might do things for their own reasons, right? It doesn't mean that the Sharia doesn't exist. Islam has a constitution. It's the Sharia. So the fact that they're not applying it doesn't mean that they won't do it tomorrow. They have in the past. ISIS did it. The Taliban are doing it. Hamas wants to do it, right? Also, they might be not so secular, but the ones upcoming in the next election might be very, very religious, right? I mean, they might be secular, but the next ones might be very theocratic. So, and also some of them are on a bit of a slow burn. Like some are saying, okay, you know what? We'll simply use infiltration. We'll use money in the UN. We'll use money in the universities, and we'll just convert everybody. We'll do it slowly. And others are like, yeah, let's do it with the gun right now. Let's do it at the barrel of a gun, and boom, let's just kill everyone and take over the world. So some are on the quick path and some are on the slow path. It doesn't mean they're not on the path. All right. So let's see what the Sharia tells us on the manner of waging war, and we'll see if it's in response to warfare or if they have to proactively go and kill you. Right. When the Muslims enter the enemy's country and besiege the cities or strongholds of the infidels, it is necessary to invite them to embrace the faith. Right. If therefore they embrace the faith, it is unnecessary to war with them, because that which was the design of the war is then obtained without war. In other words, the design of the Muslim war is to make you a Muslim. The whole point of jihad is to convert you to Islam, the whole world to Islam, and then the end times will come and Momo will come back. The Prophet has said, we are directed to make war upon men until such time as they shall confess, there is no Allah but Allah. But when they repeat this creed, their persons and their lives and properties are in protection. ISIS wrote the very same. ISIS was using standard, normal Sharia. And they must then be called upon to pay jizya, a capitation tax. And by submitting to this tax, the war is forbidden and terminated. And if I go into, that's a separate subject on its own, if I go at length into the Sharia and the jizya and the dhimmi status, that's pretty disgusting. It's pretty nasty. Okay, now, okay, the people will perceive that they are attacked for the sake of religion and not for the sake of taking their property. Interesting. And on this consideration, it is possible that they may be induced to agree to the call to become Muslims in order to save themselves from the troubles of war. I think they're pretty honest here. If a Muslim attacks infidels without calling them to the faith, without saying, embrace Islam or we're going to kill you. It's okay if you embrace Islam, then we won't kill you. But then it says in the next paragraph, but if you don't do that and you just kill them anyway, right, because this is forbidden, but yet if you do attack them before inviting them and you kill them and you take their property, there is no fine, you don't have to expiate your sins, and there's no atonement, because that which protects them, namely Islam, does not exist in them. Do you see how Sharia will say one thing? So Muslim can throw you this little sop and say, but look here what it says. And then he misses the very next sentence, which literally contradicts the previous sentence, which nullifies. In Islamic law, every single law is nullified by a counter law. Every single law. And there's a principle called hiyal, which allows them to circumvent, neutralize, or do the opposite of every single law in Islam. There is literally not one thing in Islam that is sacrosanct. Not one. Everything has a legal loophole. Everything. So, in the same manner as the... Yeah, exactly. It's Gnostic. It's satanic. And in the same manner as the slaying of the women or infant children of infidels is forbidden. Thank God, killing women and children is forbidden. But if a person were to slay women and children, you are not liable to a fine. Imam, I murdered women and children. I murdered 5 babies and 7 women. It's like, okay, look, we're not going to give you a fine, okay? If we did fine you, it's probably like $5, $10 or whatever, but look, in this case, we'll waive the fine. So just try not to kill any more men, women, and children anymore, okay? But there's no fine. So did you feel relief learning that, Wolfman? Yeah, I mean, where's Eleanor? Maybe she wants to tell us a little bit about her views on Islam. I mean, maybe she's an expert. Maybe she'd like to...
Actually, I will invite...
Right. So if the infidels, if they don't convert, the Muslims must call upon Allah for assistance and then make war upon them, right? And because Allah is the destroyer of his enemies, the infidels. So you are the enemy of Islam because you are not a Muslim. And you must attack the infidels with all manner of warlike engines. This is all sanctified by the law, which takes me to a brief detour. And here is where I need to speak about Iran. So let's have a look here. Let's have a look at the peace-loving Republic of Iran. This is in the Islamic Republic of Iran's constitution, because Islam is religion of piss. And as you know, piss is yellow and warm. All right? And doesn't smell so good when it's been left in the sun for a little while. Right? That's why they say it's religion of piss. So, in the constitution of Iran, it states, this is in the preamble, a religious army. In the formation and equipping of the country's defense forces, due attention must be paid to faith and ideology as the basic criteria. Accordingly, the Army of the Islamic Republic of Iran and the Islamic Revolutionary Guards are to be organized in conformity with this goal. And they will be responsible not only for guarding and preserving the frontiers of the country of Iran, but also for fulfilling the ideological mission of jihad in the way of Allah. We've just seen what jihad is in the way of Allah. It's to spread Islam by the sword, by force throughout the world. That is, extending the sovereignty of Allah's law throughout the world in accordance with the Quranic verse. Prepare against them whatever force you are able to muster, strings of horses, striking fear into the enemy of Allah and your enemy and others besides them. Quran 8 verse 60. You see, the Iranian Revolution is to be exported around the world. The revolution will not be contained in our borders. The revolution will go after everybody. Iran sponsors terror around the world because this is in Iran's constitution. If you actually take the time to read the constitution, it says lower down in the constitution that they will ally themselves with all sorts of revolutionary movements around the world to promote Islam and destroy the West. I'm missing the religion of the peace, but I'm seeing the piss, that's for sure. So, your thoughts on that? Yeah, certainly. I actually have something on that up, yeah. I will. So, notice it says here, war is an observance of a divine law, and atonement is not due for anything which may happen in the fulfillment of a divine ordinance. But they beheaded children, they beheaded babies, they murdered women, they raped women. Well, war is following the will of Allah. Atonement is not due. You've done nothing wrong. Understand, you've done nothing wrong, because done nothing wrong which may happen in the fulfillment of Allah's law. Right? For otherwise, men would neglect the fulfillment of the ordinance from an apprehension of becoming liable to atonement, and therefore you are free from any sin and you are free from any punishment. You may do as you please in this war. Do you understand why Muslims will tell you, but they did nothing wrong? Hamas did nothing wrong. They could fuck little kiddies, okay? They could jam spears up a kiddies, and parade them on poles. And you know what? That's okay, because that's war. Because they're fulfilling Allah's will. Allah works in mysterious ways. This is how depraved and sick this is. Do you understand? It's a divine ordinance. That is to say, it is enjoined and authorized in sacred writings. Look, I'll take the Muslims at their words, right? Maybe they're just telling us what they believe. Who knows? So, let's have a look here. It is not laudable to carry young women along with the army. Don't take too many prostitutes with you for the purpose of carnal gratification. If, however, the necessity be very urgent, female slaves may be taken. Yeah, but not your wives. You can shag prostitutes. Don't shag your wives, because Islam is all about morality. Good stuff. Good stuff. You understand? There is literally not a single law in Islam that doesn't have its inverse, its opposite, that cannot be broken. Nothing. Check my series on Hiyal. I go through this in detail, in excruciating detail. Yeah, so I'll wind down here, but I think I've made my point. Here. Any thoughts or comments from the audience or yourself? I will, yeah, no, on Jihad, I think I've said enough. I think I've kind of made my point in terms of Jihad. Look, I have been asked by people about this in the past. I worked with a group in the past. One, you have to make this information public. People have to realize the Sharia. The Sharia is Islam's weak underbelly. It is a sin. It is, in fact, treason. It is a crime for Muslims to reveal the Sharia. What I'm doing here is a crime. This is a death penalty crime for Muslims to reveal. It's a death penalty for me to reveal this, okay? Because the Sharia explains Islam accurately with no bullshit. This is pure, unadulterated, accurate, clear Islam with no confusion, right? So this has to be made public. I mean, people have to start showing this, putting memes out, putting out screenshots, social media, so that everyone can see that all of the Sharia books say the same things. There is no confusion in the Sharia books. Muslims may lie, but these are written by the greatest scholars in Islam to ever live. It's like their Moses, their Abraham, their Jesus all wrote this stuff, and they can't be wrong. Moses can't be wrong, Abraham can't be wrong, Jesus can't be wrong, God can't be wrong. This is Allah's law, the perfect law. This is the law of Muhammad. Understand? It needs to go out there. People have to learn and see just how depraved, disgusting, satanic, and evil Islam is. And then talk about it. And yeah, also, the other solution, besides shooting everyone in the head, which is probably not that practical, you have to convert them. Quite bluntly, you have to train. The solution that I thought is going to be the most practical is to train Christian apologists to know the Sharia, to understand the enemy, to understand the doctrine. This is Islam's war doctrine. Understand, if you've been in the military, and all of you have been as Israelis, you've been in the army. This is the enemy's doctrine of warfare. This is their fighting doctrine, right? This is their threat doctrine. Understand, the Sharia is the ultimate foundation of their threat doctrine. The simplest solution, after me thinking about this for many years and wondering about this, train missionaries in this so that they know it, and send them out to convert Muslims to Christianity, right? Just convert them like crazy. Make them Buddhists if you want. Doesn't matter. Just anything but Islam, okay? Convert them to, you pick whatever. I mean, but seriously, I would say make them Christians. Muslims who become Christians are often very, very devout. They become on fire. So, personally, I'm not a huge fan of Protestant Gnosticism. So, I'm not going to recommend going down that route. But that said, I mean, any other differences aside, but at least I personally think that the Lutherans are not invading Israel and killing your women and children right now. So man, if you have to go that route, fine. But convert them, train missionaries, because you have to defend your culture. You have to defend your religious roots. These people believe in this stuff. And so you need to find people who are serious and just convert every Muslim you see. Start proselytizing like crazy. Does that answer your question? Yeah, no, I don't mean you guys, but you need to encourage Christian churches to do this. You need to encourage religious groups, evangelical groups to do this everywhere, because the funding is coming from the West. The funding is coming. So you need missionaries everywhere. That's the only way to get them away from these sick ideas. Islam must be destroyed. Islam has to be destroyed. It must be humiliated and exposed publicly. The Sharia exposes Islam. Does that answer your question? I think it was Roni, right? I'm not sure who asked that question. I'll do Muhammad. I'll do the Muslim Brotherhood a little bit, and then I'll do Muhammad as well. The Sharia is the... Okay, so Muhammad brought... Okay, the Sharia is... Think of it as a way, right? Okay, Islam, I didn't show those slides, I didn't go through that, but for now, I have a detailed talk, and I've got shorter and longer talks, 5-minute videos, 10-minute videos, 2-hour videos, depending. Islam is a political system. It is like Nazism. It is like socialism, right? Think Stalin, think Lenin. It claims to be a full political system, and it claims, Eleanor, are you listening? Sharia claims to be a full legal system. So you have to ask yourself, if Islam is a legal system, where are its laws? And what are its laws? I have just showed you some of the legal texts where we find the laws of Islam, and I've shown you what the laws of Islam say. This is the final exegesis. Now, Muhammad came, and he supposedly dictated and he left the Quran, right? And then Muslims had to take this tiny little book, which says, I don't know, eat chocolate on Tuesdays, right? Eat chocolate on Tuesdays. And then it said, and then they're like, okay, what kind of chocolate? How much chocolate? Can we drink the chocolate? Does it have to be dark chocolate? What about milk chocolate? Can we add strawberries in the chocolate? What about nuts? Do you understand? Now it gets like the Talmud. So the Muslim scholars had to look at the Sharia, and had to look at the Quran and go, it says chocolate on Tuesdays. Allah wants us to have chocolate on Tuesdays. What if it's going to make us fat? Do we have low-fat chocolate, low-carb chocolate? Do we use sweeteners? What do we do here? Right? And then they go through the other sources, like they go through the hadiths, they go through the seerah, right? And they look through these sources, they go through the tafsir, the commentaries on the Quran. And then you've got over 1,000 years, you've got 10,000 scholars, all of them squabbling, all of them, and eventually 4 major scholars, 5 in total ultimately, but 4 major scholars come along, and they're like, you know what, we got to sort this crap out. We've got to come to a consensus called the ijma. And they write so the law starts to form. It took 900 years for the Sharia to ultimately form, but it's all based on the Quran, exegesis, and eventually Islamic practice and Islamic law is defined. So they build this, and eventually they have like this. By the 10th century, they've got this Islamic law more or less worked out, right? Can you please send me the PDF files used in the lecture? Yes, I can, AA. I will give them all to my host, and then I will provide the links. If you can pin them later, and then I'll just provide all the links to all the books, all right? So I'll make everything available to everyone. Please remind me. Oh, no, I'm not done yet. Give me a second. I'll explain. So Muhammad left the Quran. Then scholars came along later, and they eventually sorted throughout all the noise and confusion, and they said this is the final interpretation. The Sharia is the final understanding and the final interpretation of what is in the Quran. In fact, it even supersedes the Quran. It is the final understanding with no confusion. That is the Sharia. It's what all Muslims have to follow. It's the law of Allah. Hopefully that gives you an answer. Aren't Jews a protected class? Okay, so here's let me explain this protection. Okay, I didn't do a talk on Dhimis and Jizya, but let me explain how Jews are protected. Jews and Christians, how you are a protected class. You're in Italy, you're in Sicily, and a couple of guys with these little thick jackets and little bumps under the jacket come in, right? And they go, hey, hey, Jimmy, nice shop you got here. It would be a shame if all your windows got broken, your daughter got raped, your dog got shot, your kid had his throat stepped on, and all the shit in your store got broken, and you ended up with 5 broken fingers and a broken jaw in hospital. Would be a real shame, wouldn't it, Jimmy? But if you pay us a little bit of money, we can ensure that doesn't happen. What do you say we come round on the 1st of next month and you give us $1,000, $2,000? No, you know what? You look like a rich. Make it $5,000. We'll see you on the 1st. You give us a little bit of money and we'll make sure you're protected. Do you understand? That is the protection. They claim to have founded the Freemasons. The Muslim Sufis, the Sufis claim. Don't forget, the Sufis run Al-Azhar University, the world's most famous Muslim university is run by a Sufi, and they claim to have founded the Freemasons. Yeah.
So this is the origin, or maybe there is.
Islam. So look, ultimately, when you trace these groups, like the Shriners, they claim to inherit the original Egyptian mystery religion. So do the Freemasons at the end of the day. And that claim was first made in the 9th century by the Sufis in Spain. After they found, supposedly, in Haran, they found certain Babylonian rites which claimed to have inherited the Egyptian mystery religion texts. And the Sufis claim to have taken this with them to Spain when they conquered Spain and settled in Cordoba. So it would seem that their claim goes back the earliest. As I said, even the Rosicrucians, Christian Rosenkreuz, this whoever he was, clearly a nickname, he claimed to have learned Rosicrucianism in Morocco, which last I checked is not Buddhist or Catholic, right? I'm reasonably certain it's Muslim. So even Rosicrucianism comes straight out of Islam, right? The Nazi Party was founded. So remember, Rudolf von Sabotendorf, this guy becomes a Sufi, becomes a Freemason and a Rosicrucian, learns it from the Sufis, right? Learns it from Muslims, becomes a high-ranking Muslim imam, goes to Germany, founds the Tool Society, and the Tool Society gets joined by all the Nazis just conveniently, right? And 1 year later, boom, the Tool Society changes its name. We're now the Nazi Party. We're a Muslim occult society. Eleanor, are you listening? So yeah, it would seem, and also they claim that Hermes Trismegistus, now if you look at Madame Blavatsky and all of these occult groups, they all trace their roots to Hermes Trismegistus. Even the Gnostics are an offshoot, seems to be split off from the secret knowledge of Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes the thrice great Hermes. And if you read the history of Hermes Trismegistus, it's complete bullshit. But it's laughably stupid, but they all claim to trace back. And the Muslims claim that Hermes was a Muslim, effectively. He is the ancestor of Muhammad, and they have incorporated his teachings. He's part of Islam. He's Idris. This major occult figure that underlies all of these secret societies, Hermes Trismegistus, is supposedly Idris in Islam. He's the second prophet mentioned in the Quran, and he was a Muslim. He was a prophet of Allah. And so, yeah, that's the craziness. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Yeah. They're similar in some ways, they're different in some ways, but they seem to share a common root, but there are similarities and there are differences. But the thing is, even Gnostics don't agree with themselves. I mean, look at Protestants, they can't agree with themselves either. They're just all over the place, right, theologically. So that's just how it is, but they all converge on a certain point, and you have to have a root source somewhere. There's always a root source, and he seems to be the root source, where Gnosticism splits off and goes their own way, but they keep some ideas. So they merge in some ways and they separate in some ways, but even the Gnostics do the very same.
Did you research about it?
Yeah, I haven't done any videos yet, but I have a lot of notes that I need to start editing and do shows on. Yeah.
I would love for you to share them with me.
Yeah, the history of Hermes is bullshit. It's so funny. It's stupid. Honestly, when you read the actual history and the claims, you realize it's fiction. It's comedy gold, but people take it seriously. Okay, so I want to show you the definition of the word. This is what you're seeing here is volume 13 of the Encyclopedia of Islam. Now, to buy a copy of this book will cost you a copy of this encyclopedia, which is the gold standard academic reference work on Islam, written by it's over a century old. It's updated monthly, or every 3 months. It is written by hundreds of scholars over the last 100 years, and it includes Muslim and the absolute best scholarship, okay? Not that there isn't some nonsense in it, but this costs you $40,000 to buy if you want a copy. Or you can rent it per annum for $5,000. It's not cheap. So let me see. But I want to show that I'm not just talking out of my head, okay? I'm not just making it up. Sharia. Here we go. Okay, you see here? So this is volume 13, which is like an index to the other 12 volumes, okay? So Sharia technically means a prophetic religion in its totality. Within Muslim discourse, the rules and regulations, notice the laws governing the lives of Muslims, in other words, a political system. And 2, it is Islamic jurisprudence, Islamic law. Just like you have the Talmud, this is far more developed. It's far more explicit. The Talmud is often not very explicit or clear. The Talmud is like got this responsive, this pilpul, this little debate. The Sharia is often explicit law, just bang, 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 here are the laws, right? In the Quran, where it appears once only, and in the tradition literature, the hadiths, Sharia designates a way or path divinely appointed. So it is divine law, the law of Muhammad and the law of Allah. Now, within the Sharia, Muhammad speaks with the authority of Allah. In fact, they are synonymous, which is shirk, which is a crime in Islam, the ultimate sin of blasphemy, right? So, which Allah does not forgive. But Muhammad and it states so that Muhammad and Allah are synonymous. So it is the religion of Islam, but the political, legal religion of Islam. Does that answer your question? Way or road, it means, so many people will say a path to water, it's a way. Now, for instance, they'll say it's a way, a road. Technically, it's a road to somewhere, but metaphorically, it's a way, like the Tao, the Chinese, the Tao, the way, this is the way to enlightenment. It's a way, it's a spiritual way, but Islam doesn't.
You said water.
So many will say it's the path to water. You'll hear that sometimes, right? But it doesn't. But if you read the area around the water hole, or the point of entry to the water hole. Now notice, this is a minor definition. It's defined in volume 8, page 249b, in the second column on the right-hand side. So this is a minor definition, because Muslims will almost never give you the primary definition. They'll give you like sometimes a word will have 13 definitions, and they'll give you number 12. They don't want you looking at 1 and 2. Do you understand? Yeah. So Islam, you must understand, Islam claims to be an occultic religion as well. It is Gnostic. It claims explicitly to be Gnostic. Any Muslim that tells you otherwise is ignorant or lying to you. Probably both, right? So yeah, but hopefully this answers your question. You can see that this book, as I said, this 40 grand encyclopedia is phenomenal. It has so much. This is only the volume 13. This is like a short index. And then if you want more, you'll then go to volume 8. You'll go to volume 9. You go here to volume 9, this page. So it tells you where to find data. Any other questions before I do the last section, guys? Just your African, Middle Eastern Muslims tend to be more honest about following the Sharia. They tend to be a little closer to the actual strict rulings. The Westerners are more westernized, but that doesn't mean that tomorrow they will suddenly go from rukhsa, which is relaxed, or not following the doctrine strictly, to azima. You don't know that. And many of them are remember, Muslims earn reward. Jihad, one form of jihad is to hate you while pretending to your face to be kind and nice and be your friend. They earn reward for that, this kind of deception. And we discussed lying in the previous episode. I discussed obligatory lying in Islam, and this is a form of jihad. So they're only nice until they are told your side's under attack and you now need to defend Islam for the good of Allah. So that's the problem. So yeah, Western Muslims, some may well be, but the problem is that second and third generation Muslims, look at Sweden. Second and third generation Muslims have turned Sweden from the safest country in the world to the most violent country in Europe, with gang warfare, shootings, and bombings on a daily basis. Yeah, because they're not, okay, so they're not as aggressive as third worlders, because I know the third world mind, I'm from the third world, but I can tell you they are funding jihad through other means. They are infiltrating politics, they're infiltrating schools, they're infiltrating universities, they're funding, they're sending money, zakat, 1/8 of all zakat has to go towards jihad. The Muslims will find there's 13 or 14 kinds of jihad. They're doing one of them. It's obligatory. So they might seem to be very nice, but they're not your friend, and ultimately, one way or another, they're going to be supporting the cause. They're just on the slow curve. They're just on the slow burn. They're not the ones who are going to pick up the gun and force you at gunpoint to convert. These are the ones who say, well, we'll just send money. We'll simply just subvert the government slowly and surely over time. Because that's what Islam does. It just does it slowly over time. A lot of places they didn't invade. They just over time just escalated over time. Look, I mean, if you look at the statistics, like 80% of Muslims, like you go to London, you go to the US, right? 80% of Muslims want the Sharia. I've just read to you the Sharia. I've shown you the Sharia. 80% of westernized Muslims want the Sharia. But ask them, what's in the Sharia? They'll say, the Sharia is beautiful. It's Allah's law and it means that fairness and equality. Bullshit. They know what's in the Sharia. Why do you think Muslims never show the Sharia? Because it is disgusting. It's filthy. Pedophilic trash. So I wouldn't trust them at all. You cannot. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, let's move on, yeah. Okay, so notice the Muslim Brotherhood is committed to violent jihad, okay? And Allah is our objective. The Prophet is our leader. The Quran is our law. Jihad is our way. Dying in the way of Allah is our highest hope. That's the creed of the Muslim Brotherhood, right? This, I've already shown how jihad is legally defined in the Sharia. Now, after the loss, as we mentioned, in the Six-Day War, they came up with a new strategy based on Chairman Mao's propaganda tactics. So their methodology is predicated on the sophisticated method of guerrilla and propaganda warfare created by Mao, called the People's War. So they leverage an existing strategy that allows them to recruit willing, largely socialist dupes in a common anti-Western, anti-Christian goal. Notice how Islam and socialism always go hand in hand, right? The red and the greens, always going hand in hand. Now, People's War involves moral propaganda with a theme of victimization and oppression blended with heroic, uplifting sentiments of victory and moral righteousness. Those Israelis, they're killing us. We're in an open-air prison, and we're victims, and we're oppressed, and we just murdered a bunch of kids and innocent people, and this is moral victory. And do you understand how this works? And with calculated acts, tactical acts of savage violence to sap enemy morale, to make the infidel feel subdued as per Quran 9:29, and boost that of the resistance. Can you see the terminology and the methodology here? It should be very clear what Hamas and other groups have been doing, right? This is based on Chairman Mao's. Yeah, just remind me to hold on. So, okay, when I finish here, I'll try and finish in 20 minutes or so. But I will send. So I'll make a list of all these documents and send them to you. Okay. So, right. Muhammad Badi, okay, this was one of the leaders here, declared in 2010, today the Muslims crucially need to understand that the improvement and change that the nation of Islam, the Ummah, seeks can only be attained through jihad and sacrifice, and by raising a jihadi generation that pursues death, just as the enemies pursue life. Do you understand? It is a death cult, and they're not giving up anytime soon, right? Osama bin Laden was a disciple of al-Qaradawi, and Osama bin Laden was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. They forgot to tell you that, probably. Right? So, dear brothers, we must not forget to nurse our children and grandchildren on hatred towards those Zionists and Jews and all those who support them. They must be nursed on hatred. The hatred must continue. I wrote this document, by the way. That's why my name's on it. I wrote this for an organization. So, the Muslim Brotherhood. Okay? The sword of peace here. This is the swords of peace, of course. Ikhwan's supreme guide, Muhammad Badi, friend of Osama bin Laden. Okay? So, of course, for some reason, the US refuses to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terror organization. So, civilization jihad. In 1991, the FBI captured this explanatory memorandum. So, the role of the Muslim Brotherhood in America, and don't forget, this is not just exclusive to America, right? The process of settlement, and this is to answer the last speaker, right? The last question. The process of settlement is a civilization jihad process, with all the word means. The Ikhwan must understand that their work in America is a kind of, and Britain and France and everywhere, okay, is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers so that it is eliminated and Allah's religion is made victorious. So they're doing slow settlement jihad. Remember, wherever a Muslim settles, that land becomes waqf, becomes an endowment from Allah, and that land is now Muslim. So if a Muslim settles somewhere, that is Muslim land. He cannot give it up. It's now owned for Allah, and he must fight for it and take it back. Without this level of understanding, we are not up to this challenge and have not prepared ourselves for jihad yet. It is a Muslim's destiny to perform jihad and work wherever he is and whatever lands until the final hour comes. And there is no escape from that destiny. Okay? So, phase 1. Let's work through the 5-phase plan for infiltration of an American coup. This document went to court. These were presented in the largest terror funding trial in the US. Okay? And the contents of the documents were never contested. They are authentic. Phase 1. Discreet and secret establishment of elite leadership. This phase has already been implemented in America. And they are certainly trying it in the UK, France, you pick the country. They're doing it there too. Phase 2, gradual appearance on the public scene and exercising and utilizing various public activities. It has greatly succeeded in implementing this stage. It also succeeded in achieving a great deal of its important goals, such as infiltrating the government, gaining religious institutions and embracing senior scholars, universities, gaining public support and sympathy, and establishing a shadow government, a secret government within the government. Phase 3, escalation phase, prior to conflict and confrontation with the rulers through utilizing mass media, currently in progress. Phase 4, open public confrontation with the government through exercising the political pressure approach. It is aggressively implementing the above-mentioned approach and training on the use of weapons domestically and overseas in anticipation of 0 hour. And in phase 5, seizing power to establish the Islamic nations under which all parties and Islamic groups are united. This, and they claim to be at phase 4 already. Yeah?
Is that the document that Brigitte Gabriel was
Yes.
publishing that they found in the States?
Yeah, the FBI discovered this in a secret cache in the guy's house, in a secret basement. And this went to court. This was presented at court. It was never been contested. It's never been declared to be false. So they claim to be...
Send it also
Yeah.
when you prepare everything.
Okay, so they have hundreds of these secret organizations. Okay, so I'm not going to go into that. Just one more thing I want to do from this document, then I'll do something else. Okay, so okay, so let's apply information dominance. So Muslims are very good at information dominance. So let's apply information dominance doctrine to medicine. Let's say, for example, the words heart, the word attack, the word cardiac, the word arrest, and the word cholesterol become illegal because you're a heart attackophobe if you say these words, okay? Imagine these words were scrubbed from medical text and made taboo because they're hateful, bigoted, and worst of all, heartophobic towards peaceful, gentle hearts, okay? So you can't use these 5 words: heart, attack, cardiac, arrest, and cholesterol. So then, to describe the problem, you have to say, I'm suffering from body extremism. I'm having violent upper body extremism. I'm having violent extremism of the chest. I'm suffering from chest extremism. I'm having violent chest cavity palpitations. I'm getting chest pain extremism. I'm having chest violent extremism. I'm having upper thorax extremism. All chests are the same. There are extremists in every chest. Diet has nothing to do with thorax extremism. Extremism has no diet. Hospitals that discuss hearts are racist and heartophobic. Heart profiling is racist. You can't check hearts. That's heartophobic. Heart textbooks can only be understood in Arabic. You know, heart textbooks can only be understood in Arabic. That medical diagnosis is out of context. Don't use the words heart attack. Rather say body extremism. Are you anti-cholesterol? You're promoting cholesterol hatred. You hate 1 billion cholesterols? This has nothing to do with hearts. Do you understand how Muslims have taken over language? They have won the information dominance war. Language gets twisted. It fails to describe anything. Understand? And of course, let's do one more thing. This is the last section here, then I'll do one. Yes?
Similar to the woke nonsense today in the academies.
Yes, it's military. It's military ideological warfare doctrine.
It's all coming from Marxism, and now I fully understand.
Yes.
Is woke, is Islam,
Mm-hmm.
is everything that we are dealing with.
Yes. Yes. So,
Would you agree
Hmm?
that the Muslims are just the first civilization that were conquered basically by those ideas, and they just have a different kind of poison for the West?
yeah, that would make a fair statement. They're irrational. They've been captured by this ideology. They've got their own flavor of it, their own twist on it, their own spin on it. But yes. So, final thing here before I move to the last section, okay? So, elevator pitch. The aim of your enemy is to inhibit critical analysis, right? So the Muslims want to inhibit critical analysis of Islam so that you cannot understand the enemy. The enemy doesn't want you to understand the enemy. Do not let the enemy know he's your enemy. Make him unable to realize there's an enemy and to define that enemy. So, what they do is they create arguments that inspire 1, shame. You do not critically examine or defend what you are ashamed of. You're a white supremacist racist. Your family owned slaves and you tortured my family for hundreds of years, and my country was built on our backs and the backs of slaves. I'm sorry, take some money. Can I give you a check for BLM? Shame. 2, amnesia. You cannot be inspired by or draw from what you forgot or do not know. So if you don't defend your culture, they will push theirs. If you don't assert your culture, they will push theirs. There are a lot of Jew-hating Jews out there, quite bluntly, right? There are a lot of Jew-hating Jews with bullshit understanding of history and fucked up logic and morals, okay? That have no understanding of the appreciation of their culture, all right? And they support depraved, sick, violent, pedophilic, disgusting cultures because, look, same goes for Catholics, same goes for a lot of people. But the woke, they've successfully done that, okay? Defend your culture, believe in it. So, amnesia, if you don't remember who you are, if you're not rooted to a particular set of morals, cultural precepts, you cannot identify enemies, you cannot identify friends, you don't know who you are, where you're going, where you come from. You're just a leaf in the wind and they will blow you away. And irrationality, destroy logic and evidence with rhetoric, propaganda, and emotion. Well, emotion, woke, screaming, shouting, no debate, no logic, right? Irrationality, destroy reason, destroy logic. And these people are not reasonable. So understand, you need to fight back. You need to defend your culture and you need to shame them. You need to not have amnesia. You need to, in fact, rub their culture and their history in their face, their doctrine in their faces. Use your influence in media, right? And final thought. So now I'm going to close all of this and I'm going to go to the final section. Okay, give me 1 sec. There's one more thing that I need to do. And so I'm going to be very brief here. I'm not going to go through everything, but I want to here go to semen. Okay, let's talk about Muhammad a little bit. Okay, I don't want to do everything on Muhammad, but let's read through the hadiths. Okay. Okay, so that. Okay, Aisha, Muhammad's wife, actually says in the book by Al-Ghazali, who is considered the most highly knowledgeable scholar after Muhammad himself, she says to Muhammad, it is you who pretend to be a prophet from Allah. That's legitimate. That is legitimate. And in fact, in the hadith it states the superiority of Aisha over other women. So she is the most superior of Islamic women. Okay, but let me go back here. I need to find all the references to semen. So let's have a read about, yeah. Sorry? Muhammad's wife, she was 6 years old. Muhammad married her at 6, but she fell ill, and for 2.5, 3 years he couldn't have sex with her. So he slept with her at 9 once she recovered from her illness, which I showed in the previous episode, made pedophilia legal in Islam. There is no lower age limit. I can show all of that, but that is in my show. I have several talks on that. There is no lower age limit for sex with the little girl in Islam. There is no lower age limit. Nothing. Right, so Muhammad's 6-year-old wife scraped semen off his clothes with her fingernails. Narrated Aisha, I used to wash the traces of janaba, semen, from the clothes of the Prophet. He used to go for prayers while traces of water were still visible. I asked Aisha about the clothes soiled with semen. Narrated Suleiman bin Yasar. She replied, I used to wash the semen off the clothes of Allah's Messenger. This is a 6-year-old girl, okay? I heard Suleiman bin Yasar talking about the clothes soiled with semen. He said that Aisha had said, I used to wash it off the clothes of Allah, and he would go for the prayers while water spots were still visible on them. I used to wash the semen off the clothes of the Prophet, and I used to notice one or more spots on them. I used to scrape off the semen from the garments of the Messenger of Allah. And pertaining to the scraping off of semen from the garment of the Messenger of Allah, he then went out for prayer in that very garment where she scraped the semen, where he got, the Messenger of Allah, and washed semen. I used to wash it from the garment of the Messenger of Allah. I used to scrape the semen. On another occasion, she said, the semen from the garment of the Messenger of Allah. Aisha, semen used to get on the garment of the Messenger of Allah, and he would wash it off, then would go pray. I often scraped semen from the garment of the Messenger of Allah with my hand. Now, here's a question for those of you who are devout Jews. Do the Jewish writings talk about how Rebecca was scraping semen with her fingernails off the garments of Moses, Isaac, Jacob, Abraham? Is that like part of these of the Jewish texts anywhere? Not, yeah, well, but this,
Absolutely not.
yeah. When I found semen on the garment of the messenger of Allah, I scraped it off with my nails. Like, thanks for sharing this bullshit. Understand, now I can go into length about the character of Muhammad, about his murders, his assassinations, but do you understand? He even, man, there's so much to be said. I would just need hours. But do you understand? This is there's it's disgusting. This is disgusting. So yeah, I guess that's it from me.
I hope you will be willing to come again.
Oh wow, yeah, I didn't do that, did I? Um. Okay, well, yeah, give me 1 second, please. No, thank you. Let me. Great, I need to find something for. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, I need to find the correct links. Give me 1 second. So I have a YouTube channel. I'm just gonna link you to my YouTube channel in a moment. So yeah, I never. Okay, so I'm gonna drop this in the chat. Yeah, I never think of these things. That's a problem. This is my YouTube channel, which is being dropped in the chat. I'm just gonna repeat it 3 times. Those are my videos. You guys can learn from my videos. I have hundreds of videos. I have detailed ones, short ones, long ones, and hopefully they will teach you a great deal about Islam, right? And I provide all the sources, and I'm going to provide the sources as well. And if you guys would like to support, and I appreciate that, I mean, I'd be very grateful. These are some links that you can use, right? So yeah, I don't like using PayPal, but there it is. So if you guys would like to support, those are ways that you guys could possibly do that. Um, yeah. So yeah, but any last questions? Is there anything that you guys would like to ask?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
It's a technical one. I understand that you are
Because I have a big mouth and I don't give a shit, and I'd kill them if they came after me, and they know that. Someone has to talk about this. Someone has to stand up to this bullshit. Someone has to expose the lie. Someone doesn't, right? Then we are culpable. We are guilty of being cowards. These are the facts. This is the truth. In 4 years, I have not had a single Muslim, not one, willing to meet with me publicly on a live stream. And I've said, please, guys, look, these are the Islamic sources, right? All of these are authorized. These are all attested. There's so much evidence to prove that these books are the ones that are the best, absolutely highest priority Islamic law manuals. Let's read them together. Let's simply open them. You say Islam is perfect. Muhammad is perfect. You say this is the perfect law of Allah. Muhammad brought the perfect law. It is beautiful. It is good. It is amazing. Let's show the world it. Let's just read it and explain it to me. Let's do this in public. In 4 years, not a single Muslim has been willing to do that because it's illegal for them. All right. So and look, I mean, first of all, I'm taking a risk, and people have been stabbed. Salman Rushdie got stabbed in the eye recently, didn't he? Got stabbed a few times. People have been killed for talking about this. I live in Poland. I think I'm fairly safe. And I was in the Middle East. Someone has to do this. Someone has to do this. Um, and
No, of course, I
yeah.
understand that the truth needs to be said.
Mhm.
So
It's a risk I
long as
take.
they have power.
Look, it's a risk I take, but the thing is, I keep it very factual. I say nothing without showing the references, showing the sources. Do you understand? I back up everything meticulously with sources. Everything, all the links that you
So
saw.
proof,
Yeah, sorry.
so proof and facts are the shield of the truth.
So far, so good. Yes. Look, my channel is not that big that I get huge attention, but I am known, right? I am known. But I only made myself public once I lived in Poland, where it's pretty safe. See?
Yeah, I'm asking
Mm.
that question and speaking about it because it's very, 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 very important
Uh-huh.
for
Mm-hmm.
that.
No, no, not at all. Because here's the thing: when more people speak about it, it's like being attacked by mosquitoes, by not just one. One mosquito you can kill, two you can kill, 1,000, man, you just run away, right? Understand? If everybody starts posting this stuff on social media, then they cannot stop it. Understand? It will destroy their narrative. It will ruin them in their narrative. There is nothing in the Sharia that is good. All the Sharia manuals say the same thing. They always say, Lloyd, that's the wrong Sharia manual. You need to get the right one. I'll say, okay, which is the right one? They'll never tell me which the right one is. Okay, somehow they can never show it to me. And then if you look at any of the Sharia manuals, they all say the same shit. It's the same bullshit, the same depraved crap in every single one. There is no deviation. So what's that? So if everyone does it, they can touch no one because everyone's doing it. They cannot stem the flood. It's that simple. They will be destroyed on the basis of just these facts pouring out. Use your social media influence. Yeah.
If it's so bad, why like people go for it?
People don't know about it. This is a secret. It's illegal for Muslims to talk about it. It is treason. It is literally treason for them to talk about this. And academia is bought and paid for. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, pour billions of dollars into universities, billions, to own the academic voice. They own the academics. They own the departments. They own the printing presses. That's that simple. It's up to us. It's up to
It's ignorance.
ignorance and also willful blindness. You'll find that scholars look. I will mop the floor with some scholars who profess to be experts in Islam. I mean, but these scholars will say, well, 1 + 1. Oh, there's a bunny. Oh boy, it's lunchtime. Let's go get some food. They will never form the conclusion. They'll put one over there and they'll put one over here, and then you'll never hear the two, because they know they'll either get stabbed or they will lose their funding. It's that simple. It's up to you and me. It's that simple. More and more of us on YouTube.
First,
Yeah.
is the average Muslim?
It's hard to tell. He can't tell you. That's the problem. They know it implicitly. They know some of these things generally. They have to know some of it. But the knowledge is really with the imam who will direct them. Their job is to follow implicitly. Their job is to follow without question. But many Muslims do know enough. Let's say enough of them know this stuff. Hamas indoctrinates their people. They will read this stuff. They will study this. They'll have classes on it. They'll have tests on it. They'll have memory competitions on it. Hamas, ISIS, all the theocracies, the Iran Revolutionary Guards, they know this shit backwards. Better than you and me.
I think
Yeah, sorry?
talk on one of the shows in the
Yes, there is. Yeah.
explain
Um,
explain it.
I did show it briefly before. So you've got, okay, there are 4 layers, there are 4 levels in Islam, okay? It's a secret, but again, there are 4 levels and there are 2 divisions. You have the administrative or the Sharia, the legal, and on the other side, the spiritual, the Gnostic, which is for the Sufis only, right? For the highest scholars who are in the top 2 levels. So you've got the Ibara level, which is the lowest level of ignorance. Okay, it's the level of ignorance. It's the literal level. It is the plain level. It is the what the scholars call Islam for the masses, the Ibara level. Then you've got the Ishara, the level of allusion, the level of hidden meaning, right? This is for your trained imams, right? They understand the deeper meaning that is not explicitly written in the Quran. Your third level is called the Lata'if, which is from Latifa, which links, as far as I can tell, to Sophia, the wisdom, right? The Lata'if. And also is also known, so Sophia is the goddess of wisdom, but she's the final eon from the Gnostic pantheon that created the demiurge, the evil god that made the world. Okay, Yahweh is Satan. So she made Satan, and Satan made the world. Satan is the god that the Jews, Yahweh, is the... Yeah, exactly. So he's the demiurge, he's Satan, that's the god of the Jews. Okay? So Satan is the god of the Jews, that's the Gnostic demiurge. And then so she created that. So Lata'if is like Sophia. It's like the Arabic version of the Greek Sophia, the Gnostic goddess. So they have a certain knowledge which is reserved for the saints, okay? A certain deep spiritual illumination, right? Then there's a fourth level for the greatest of the Sufis only, called the Haqqa'iq, the final reality. However, Lata'if is also linked to Lilith, the Laylat. Lata'if is linked to Laylat. Laylat is Lilith, and you guys know who Lilith is. She's the demon within the Jewish scriptures, Jewish text. She is the demon that was supposedly the original wife of Adam, but she turned on God. She turned against God, like Satan turned against God, Lucifer, or whatever. She turned against God. She was a demon that ate babies. So that the third level, and then the fourth level is the ultimate reality. Muhammad is part of Allah. He was taken from Allah's essence, and Allah made Muhammad, and then tiny fractions were taken from Muhammad and placed into Abraham, David, Moses, Jesus, and everyone else that's a prophet in the Bible. So that's the story. And these guys get to the fourth level. So that's the 4 levels. So Islam, these people are deadly serious. You see, the only fight you have, if you don't have $10 billion and a government at your back and a secret information apparatus that runs the world, the only thing you can do is speak the truth. Now, understand that the ideology is fragile. There are certain limitations. There are certain innate fragilities within the ideology, that's recognized within ideological warfare. There are certain fragilities. And so just speaking the truth, you massively damage, just revealing it publicly, you massively damage their public image. You massively damage the spread of their message. The truth, that's why they have to censor. Right? That's what they have to control, because if the message gets out, it will severely damage them. It undermines their message. It prevents further indoctrination. It prevents them from further stealing minds, right? Capturing minds. So you need to get this out, but you need to be factual. I have zero interest in conspiracy theories. I have no time for that shit. I'm doing a talk tomorrow night on Aristotelian logic. I'm actually doing a detailed talk. It's going to be like 10 weeks, like 1 talk a week on Aristotelian logic and also scholasticism, the process. Yeah.
I will share it here live. Time exactly?
7 p.m. my time, which will be 8 yours. I know it's not the most, but 7 p.m. is convenient for me typically. So 7 p.m. my time tomorrow. Yeah. So I'll be doing that tomorrow. I'll be talking on that if you guys are keen. Join the live chat. Subscribe to my channel. I'd appreciate that. Give me support on the channel by, subscribing and sharing my videos. And but
There's gonna be a Q&A and stuff.
I have a conversation. So I do a lecture, but I have a conversation. So I engage with the chat. It's not just me talking. I have conversations. But so I always prepare slides. I've got 100 slides currently. So I prepare slides and I work through in very great detail. I provide all my sources. Everyone sees my sources. I never hide my sources. I make everything available, so everyone can see exactly where I'm getting my content from. I don't. So it's very detailed.
It's possible to join?
Yes, of course, on my YouTube channel. Just jump in the chat. No, God, I couldn't be bothered. I'm not even on Facebook anymore. I just can't be bothered. Sorry, this is depressing. This is depressing stuff, So tell me, Eleanor was talking nonsense in the chat today. Did I give you a clear understanding that she has no idea what she's talking about? Fatwas are non-binding. So fatwas are largely non-binding. They are, a sheikh has to make a fatwa. So you have to have a certain rank as an imam. The fatwas are generally public. In my talks, I go through various fatwas. I show them on my talks, and I link to them so people can go read them for themselves. And some of them are explicit. It's crazy that they make them public so you can go read them, and they'd shock you silly. They'd turn your hair orange reading some of them. But a fatwa is non-binding. So it's a non-binding, whereas the only binding regulations are in the Sharia. right? Those are binding. Those are the decision of all the scholars that this is the final meaning of a law. But a fatwa is an exposition of what is. So basically, the Sharia might be you might have a non-specific law, you might have a general law. So the fatwa applies to a specific situation, might be specific to a particular individual or a specific thing. So it's not, fatwas are generally not general, but they can be. But of course, they usually are an answer to a question. Yeah, it's a refinement of the rule, and usually in response to a question. So the question could be from a government, could be from an entity like an organization or a person. So a fatwa depends on the context, who it's for, what it's for, but it's a non-binding regulation, but specific to a particular person or group.
So it's like that.
Yeah, Islam QA is fantastic for fatwas. Islam QA, like read the one on is it legal to eat mermaids? Is it legal to eat mermaids? It's like, what the fuck? I don't know. Shit, I don't know. It's a very important question. Someone wanted to know. Okay, The Reliance of the Traveler is the very first one. You need that book. Okay, The Reliance of the Traveler is critical. Everyone should read that one. That's the major source that I refer to a lot of the time. The Hidayah, you can download here. You can get my copy is indexed, but the thing is, look, my copy is indexed, and I mean it's got all the highlights on it. But I didn't post that one, but I'm just posting now. This digest of Mohammedan law. This has that section on diddling 9-year-old girls and younger. So yeah, let me just send you my full research archive. Okay, I have a full research archive. I'm posting this link now, my Google archive. You click on it, it will take you to a series of folders, and you go to the Islam folder, go to the Sharia folder, you'll find all the references there, everything. So along with many of them I have highlights, so that I've highlighted the specific sections that are of interest. There's hundreds, there's thousands there. I have software that indexes everything. So I process all the PDFs, and then I have software that goes through them and indexes them so that I can search. So I can search through like 2,000 documents or 3,000 documents. I can search through them, and so that I can find links and references. So for instance, if I'm looking for a concept or a word or a term or something in one document, I find this, then I can use it, and within like a second, I've indexed 3,000 documents, and I can find correlations and cross connections. So I can say, okay, this is consistent because it's in 50 documents, you know. So I know I'm dealing with something solid. I pay for software that does this. So, which finicky as hell too, as you saw. It's a little primitive, but yeah, the interface is Windows 95, but the software is really good. Yeah, anything else? Yeah. Look, I need a break from this stuff because this stuff really just depresses me. But look, I mean, depends. Is there something else to talk about? Is there anything else to be discussed? Because look, I jumped around a lot. I don't always like jumping around a lot. I like to do one topic and finish it rather than jump and jump and jump, you know. But that's
But today you did it. I did not disturb your order.
yeah, I know, but I still wasn't like doing one topic. I was kind of doing different things to cover as many areas as possible. But
Maybe you can come one more time, and give us like one,
sure.
if you're willing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can do because you have to understand how the Gnostic mind works. But yeah. So guys, tomorrow I'm on YouTube for yeah. So I'll be on YouTube if you guys want to just join the channel, join the talk on YouTube. It's a live discussion. I got slides, I have PowerPoints, and which I make available, and then I've got all my resources which I make available. So you've got all the links. So guys, yeah. So I think that's it. Any final things?
Just a big thank you. I hope, guys, open your microphone and say thank you, please.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Yeah. So guys, good night. God bless. Take care and stay safe out there, right? And Hamas, I mean, Islam needs to be destroyed. I mean, seriously. So all the best to everyone out there, and you know, really all the best for everything that's going on. Okay.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye
Bye.
for now.